Okay, so as we can see, we were just talking about mindfulness and what it is and defining how it can be beneficial to us. We've also, seen the topic of mindfulness really become much more popular in the last 20 years. And with that, this particular graph it shows that there is a credible scientific research, the number of scientific research that has been attributed to mindfulness and has addressed mindfulness and the benefits of mindfulness has increased over the last 20 years, right? And this giant spike is really primarily one of the key themes that have emerged from this big spike of research is around the positive relationship between mindfulness and neuroplasticity. So what is neuroplasticity? Can you guys see my slide now that I've...
Yep. Yeah, changed.
Yep. Great. So neuroplasticity is basically the scientific finding that suggests the physical structure of our brain and the function of our brain is changed by what we think, feel, and do. Our brains are actually malleable, right, throughout the course of our lives. We don't always, this is not something that a lot of us know, right? Now, your brain will change regardless of what you do because we're always think, feeling, and doing. But what we've learned is that the practice of mindfulness, the practice of well-being and emotional intelligence can change your brain in ways that are beneficial to you. So the physiological structure of your brain actually changes, and you can do this deliberately through mindfulness practice. Great. So the brain is certainly malleable, but we have a significant challenge, and that is predominantly we spend our time in this, what is called the default mode network. And so the useful metaphor here is the way your computer sort of has a screensaver and it uses a lot of power, but it's there, it's on all the time, and it's usually a loop, actually, if you think of a screensaver. Well, that's kind of what's happening in our brain when we're not conscious. It's this endless mind wandering, this projection into the future, this sort of cyclical, non-conscious reflection of the past, maybe. Either way, it's all mind wandering, and it usually leads to considerable unhappiness because we're living literally in our brains, right? And we're not connected to our body, we're not connected to the environment in any way. So this default mode network was discovered actually by scientists as patients were waiting in an MRI scanner to be scanned. They found that with that downtime, every brain that they looked at before the scan actually started was actually behaving similarly and looked and was expressing itself visually in the same way. So I like to think of the default mode network with a phrase that comes from a related discipline that talks about downloading past patterns. It's a similar thing. If you're staying in this default mode network, you're likely not experiencing a life of healthy evolution. You're just downloading the things that you already know work, and you're doing it and you're rinsing and repeating, right? So it's important to catch ourselves in that default mode network. Okay. Now, some really interesting studies, right, around what mindfulness can do, not only to our brains, but in relation to this default mode network, but our relationship to our experience. And that's what mindfulness is really about, right? It's not about throwing out the old Jod and replacing him with a new and improved Jod. right? It's about changing your relationship to what you experience. And if you're experiencing, for example, a lot of back pain or some other type of chronic pain, mindfulness is not coming to the rescue to say, I'm making all that go away, but your relationship to the pain changes. And let's learn about this. So there was a study done by a scientist named Antoine Lutz that showed that meditation had a significant impact on stress and anxiety. And the study included both experienced and beginning meditators, and it also included, I believe it included a control group, and the scientists strapped the participants to a machine that gave them a zap of heat through a thermode that was hooked up to their arm. And the people who participated in the experiment among those groups responded differently. They all received pain from the zap, right? Regardless of whether they were an experienced meditator or beginning meditator. But there was a difference. So the pain from the zap itself was significant, but there were also feelings that were reported of anticipatory stress, knowing that the pain was coming, and a lingering feeling of discomfort after the zap, right? And so these two feelings, there are these two stages of the experience, the anticipation and this unpleasant lingering, are all functions of that salient network or the default mode network, right? And this is the part of the brain that includes the amygdala, right? Part of your limbic system, which is one of the oldest parts of the brain that allowed us to survive as in prehistoric times, to run away from dinosaurs. And this is basically, the amygdala is basically the brain's alarm system that scans for threats. So the beginning meditators experienced more of this anticipation of the zap, as well as more of the lingering of the unpleasantness, right? And the experienced meditators had much less intensity around the unpleasantness and the itself, like the zap itself, as well as the anticipation and the lingering. So what's happening there? That goes back to what I was saying earlier. They develop a different relationship with the data that their body is surfacing, right? And we'll talk about this later on. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but we talk about experiencing our feelings rather than identifying with our feelings. And that is one mechanism that we use in mindfulness training. So I think that, whoops, what happened there? Sorry. Okay. So, so that study was credible and very conclusive. Mindfulness can change your relationship to very important physical pain, as well as emotional pain. Now, a study at Texas Tech University really summarized these three benefits right here are the key benefits related to a meditation practice. The ability to control your attention improves. So that means, and I'll talk about this later, we'll talk about meta attention and attention. Quickly, meta attention is the ability to bring your attention back once you notice that you've been distracted. That's kind of what we mean by attentional control. You have greater ability to harness your attentional control and to bring it back when it needs to be there, and as well as to follow through on certain tasks. That's one benefit. The other key benefit is emotional regulation. You're no longer being driven by your emotions. You are making your emotions work for you, and you're allowing yourself to be curious about your emotions in a way that is actually beneficial and useful, without just simply reacting to them. You then, by emotional regulation, what we mean here is you have an ability to respond instead of react. And then finally, self-awareness, right? We can't improve some aspect of our behavioral response to life if we're not self-aware. Self-awareness, as I said at the very beginning of the training, this teaching is about a scaffolding, right? So the foundation is in mindfulness, then it goes to self-awareness, then we talk about self-management. All of these things are a layer cake that reinforce each other. You can't have self-management without self-awareness. So that's why the foundation is mindfulness, right? And that leads into self-awareness as a benefit. Any questions?
No, sir.
No.
Okay, good. Okay. So this study was done in mid-2017, and this was done with Search Inside Yourself participants across 15 countries. And this survey was given before the program and after the program. And these two benefits were cited as something that was improved after the program, and they are: when in conflict with someone, I take time to fully understand what is driving their perspective. So having the ability to see other people's point of view and other people's perspectives, leveraging things like empathy and compassion that we'll talk about later, there was an improvement after taking this program. Also, another key benefit, people said they had the ability to pause before reacting, which sounds kind of simple, but really that is an incredible place to get to, right? Just the ability not to react instantly through some sort of charge, emotional charge that you have, and to be able to experience it and then find what will serve the situation best, right? So these two things had a pretty significant increase before and after taking our program. So once again, the science shows that there is credible and persuasive evidence that mindfulness reduces mind and attention wandering, self-referential thinking. It reduces the anticipatory stress, whether it's about something like getting poked with a hot thermode, or it could just be something existential. I'm nervous about this trip or this presentation, right? As well as the endless kind of cycles of ruminating after the event. It also leads to lasting abilities that help you manage your attentional control, better manage your emotions, and as well have a much greater degree of self-awareness that allows you to have a sense of well-being, right, ultimately. So that captures this section, and I will stop there.